My name is Allison Arnold. I'm the extension agent here in Buncombe County, and I'll be your host today. Welcome to Gardening in the Mountains, Fruit Trees for the Home Garden. I'd like to welcome our speaker today, Craig Mauney. Craig has worked as an extension agent for the North Carolina Cooperative Extension for over 25 years. He's presently the Extension Area Specialized Agent in Commercial Vegetable and Fruit Production in the 39 westernmost counties of North Carolina. He graduated from Berea College in Berea, Kentucky, with a bachelor's degree in agriculture and has years of experience growing small fruits in his own landscape. We are super excited to have him here today to share his tips and tricks. Take it away, Craig.
Sounds great. When we were chatting about doing this, I decided to title this PowerPoint, Not Your Mama's Fruit Trees for the Home Garden, because we're really going to talk about a lot of other fruit trees that Mama had, but maybe some different varieties and different things like that. There's all kinds of tree fruits and shrubs that are suitable for your niche home gardening. And there's just an unbelievable amount that we never talk about. Some of the more common ones that I'm going to talk about today are persimmons, Asian and native. Of course, I can't do anything without talking about pawpaws. That's my most favorite fruit. Figs, pomegranates, mulberries, elderberries. I added a few shrubs in there because I really felt like, even though we're talking about tree fruit, some of these shrubs really work well. You'll see with some of the pictures at the end how we do multiple plantings at different levels in the landscape. So when you're thinking about tree fruits, especially, selecting the type of fruit to grow is the first step. I'll say right off the bat, if you don't eat it, don't grow it. You need to know which tree fruit can be grown in our region of Western North Carolina. We have a lot more opportunities to grow tree fruits in the home garden than, say, a commercial person would do. They might not grow a peach in a commercial operation in Western North Carolina, but in the home garden, we can do that. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Typical tree fruits that are grown, the primary ones that we see are the apples, peaches, and nectarines, even some of the nuts in the pecan area. Potentials that we really need to look at, especially in the home garden, are pears. We used to have a massive amount of the different kinds of sickle pears growing, plums, cherries. I don't think I put that in here, but that's one that we really need to look at because we can do those in the home garden. Figs, you think of figs being more in the Piedmont, in the coastal plains, but there are many varieties that can be grown here for us in the home garden. Looking at chestnuts even as a nut trees. This is a list that's in the information sheets, most of them that we do for NC State, but it gives you where most of these common fruits grow in North Carolina. That doesn't mean you can't try them in the home garden. If we miss a season, we're just out of luck. But if you look at apples, they grow all the way through North Carolina. Figs are mostly in the Piedmont and coastal plain areas, but there are select varieties that we can grow and they're low management for our home gardens in the area here. Pears is another one. Even there, we have a lot of problems with our apples and things with fire blight, and pears do that. But in the home garden, we can take care of that with looking at different varieties. Looking at your site, if you're looking at growing tree fruits in your home garden, look at the soil types. Most all of our urban soils, some of them have been changed, but make sure that you know where you're putting them, that they are well drained. Air drainage is very important. It's just as important as water to make sure you've got airflow, especially in the home garden. A lot of times we're going to have a lot of trees that grow up around us, so the air doesn't flow like it would, say, in a normal orchard. We look at the higher elevations if we have more than, say, an acre in our lot. I put a picture here on this slide. Right now is the time of year we're getting a cold snap. Like I think I had 32 degrees, and I took this at my house this morning. It gets below freezing a lot of times once that fruit is developed. This is what it looks like on an apple. Your apples are growing, but you get a freeze after the apple's formed. It makes these odd shapes and odd colors on your particular fruit. Frost pockets are the main thing you hear about all the time, but if you've got just a small lot in a home situation, we're talking about a big area to make a frost pocket. Just look in your own yard and see where the frost hits first. Then you'll want to do a variety that doesn't bloom so early that we get hit by frost.
What are your best tips for protecting fruit trees from frost? You mentioned about siding, but once they're in, how do you deal with that?
One of the biggest things for the home garden is we have options that a commercial nursery doesn't have. Placing them, if you see frost early every year coming into your landscape, avoid that area if you can. The second thing is to make sure that you pick a variety. Like if you're wanting to peach really, really bad, find a variety that blooms really late, like Contender or a Georgia Belle. Those are little later varieties, so we can avoid these frosts we're having right now. My Contenders have just bloomed about a week ago, and they're now forming peaches. I know that they can stand a little bit colder temperature than they could when they were in bloom. We can actually protect, if the trees are very small and dwarf trees, you can actually wrap those trees with a fabric, row covers for 6 or 7 degrees. But in the commercial nursery, they can't do that. And then the last thing you can do is to actually, if the trees are small and dwarf, we can use water. I've saved some of my cherries. You'll see a picture of my North Star that's very small, 6 feet at the most. But I was able to put water on that and then just leave the water all night long. I think it was last year we had 18 or 20 degrees later in the season. I just let the water go all night long. There's a way to do that. So those are all the methods that we can do in the home garden that we can't do in the commercial nursery.
Super. Thank you so much.
All right. Sunlight's very important. A lot of the tree fruits that we're going to talk about are a little bit tolerant to low light or shadows, but you want full sun, which is about 6 hours. What I don't realize sometimes, even when I'm looking at site selection to help someone, is I forget about shading. If we got larger trees that throw shade over some of our smaller trees, watch out for that, because the sunlight affects that color and sugar content in the tree fruit that you want. The more sun you've got, the more sugar content will build up in that fruit. What I'll do a lot of times, and you'll see some pictures later when I get into the photographs, is cut the lower limbs of a lot of these trees in our landscape. We can allow sunlight to come into the canopy, especially for some of these trees that grow under the canopy. One thing I wanted to make note of, when you're thinking about growing fruit trees and you've had a lot of vegetable plants in a certain area, be aware of nematodes, especially if you're going to grow some plums and figs. Those are the ones that get damaged a lot. If you've had a vegetable garden for many, many years and you're transitioning to fruit, some of those nematodes may be moving along in the soil. So you may want to test for that if you have that as a suspect.
What is the prevalence of nematodes in Western North Carolina that are problematic, and how do you manage for those?
One of the things we've noticed is if there's a lot of transplants that you've bought, say at a big box store, and you put them in your garden, sometimes those come from Florida or they come from other areas that are more sandy. So they have a little bit of nematodes in them sometimes, and you're moving them into your home garden. Just avoid that area or plant something that there's all kinds of chemicals that for nematodes, but you can do a cover crop of rye grain. That'll reduce that enough to where lay that out. So put that in your rotation. Maybe give it a year if you've grown tomatoes in there or peppers or eggplant, those nightshade type of plants. Carry those nematodes a little more. If you've had sweet corn in there, you might have some clipper beetles. Be aware of what you've had in that area before you put fruit trees in there. If you've had just a normal landscape with ornamental plants, you shouldn't have a problem with that. I think it's $5 to have that tested with NCDA if you have a concern. I wouldn't really worry about a lot of those chemicals. It's maybe do a cover crop. Here's just an example I want you to see. So at a home garden, we can't really do this big creation and worried about frost pockets. We just need to do an observation. In a large orchard, this is what we're looking for. Something stops that cold air from moving in and causes a frost pocket right in this little area right into here. We just want to have good drainage and make sure when you're thinking about that, the air drainage is what you're looking for and you're not trapped in a little area. I just want to throw that picture in right here. Just a little bit on fertility, high pH, which is mostly what we're going to have in our home garden areas. The biggest thing that you want to remember and even make note of, people in the home garden over-fertilize. We want to add fertilizer every year. If your fruit trees are growing less than 10 inches each year in that current season's growth, then they will respond to fertilizer. If you're getting 18 inches, I think I got 5 feet on one of my apple trees last year growth. My God, that's way too much If you're getting around 18 inches or more, don't even think about fertilizing. If you're a composting nut like me and I add mulch around my fruit trees every year, a little bit of compost, you're probably getting enough fertility. But the best time to fertilize if you're not getting that growth of 10 inches is in the late winter, early spring. So that would be now. A couple more things before we get into different varieties. Purchasing plants. Make sure your area is ready to plant if you're purchasing from an order place, because a lot of times, even this time of year, some of those varieties you've had to order from a nursery are bare root. Sometimes you'll want to actually stick them in a container and grow them out a little while to make sure you can take good care of them. But order well in advance so you'll know when that planting date is. Right now, we have got great local nurseries all over Western North Carolina that have a really good selection of blooming fruit trees. Make sure you look at the varieties. Sometimes the variety is not what you're wanting, but local nurseries, if you tell them what you're looking for, a lot of times if you get into their order system ahead of time, they'll actually get those varieties for you. I found that very true with Reems Creek and some of the ones right here in the town of Asheville. I just put this picture right here just because I wanted to brag on my wasabi. That's not a fruit tree, but you see that picture to the right. That's the wasabi that I'm growing. I'm very excited about that. The planting really varies by the species. A lot of times, fall and winter may work, especially with something that's taprooted like a pawpaw. Plant at the depth recommended for that species. That's the main thing you need to worry about. Water well once you put them in place, and that'll help them to get established. Just talk about pest management. The varieties are the biggest things that we want to look at. So we want to do resistant varieties if possible. If you know that variety is not a good one in the area and people tell you, oh no, that one's so disease prone that you might not want to grow that in your home garden. I think the biggest thing is to keep the plants healthy, preserve those natural enemies. Don't spray. Just learn those enemies. Find those allies and pollinators. I found that sanitation, getting all the dead off the trees when you see it, and keeping that plant culturally okay, you'll have a lot less use for pesticides. Use those as a last resort and try to find an organic type or less environmentally impact management on the trees. I try to work with IPM. I've already done a dormant oil spray on all of my fruit trees in my garden. Then I'm going to spray occasionally. I call the bottom of the trees, wherever you're growing them in your home garden, the floor. We're going to manage the floor of where those trees are growing. That's where all the weeds come in. We naturally want to mulch. Mulch is the best thing out there. Use natural mulches. I prefer those over the plastic. I just got to where I despise plastic because over time, you got to pull it up anyway in the home garden. If you have to have some kind of a mulch, do something biodegradable and do a barrier to those weeds while it's in the establishment phase. Ground covers are great. Having the different levels in your floor management. You'll see a picture of mine where I do my pawpaws, and then below that I have leaves, and I have a few plants growing in the leaves. Bare ground is just not what I recommend for a home garden. We do that a lot in the commercials, nurseries. Make sure you've got something growing on there. The less amount of soil that's exposed is better. Find a companion that works really, really good for your floor management. Let's just stop right here. If anybody has any questions about the technical part of growing fruit trees, Allison, is there any questions on that?
One question. This one is define high elevation.
High elevation for us in fruit trees would be 24 to 2,500 feet and higher. That 25 and 24 lower, we can grow almost anything. Let's say you're looking at figs as a tree to grow. The varieties of figs are used to that lower elevation. If you're going higher, you would have to pick something like Hardy Chicago, Celeste, those kind of fruit trees. And we have local nurseries that know very well about the figs that are doing better for elevations. Can't think of the one in Black Mountain. It's not edible landscape, but it's something like that. Those local nurseries have more experience for you. Know where your elevation is in your home garden and then adjust for that.
I think it's the useful plants.
That's it. He has a lot of varieties that I normally don't recommend, but he's used to knowing that if you're at 3,000, do not use Negra. You'll use something different.
Super. Thank you so much.
All right, let's keep going. I'm going to hit some trees now that I really recommend for your home garden. The first one that you really need to think about is your native persimmons. There's a lot of grafted cultivars out there. For us, we're going to have a ripening in October through November, and you don't have to wait till the frost hits. You don't have to wait till they fall on the ground. You have to wait till they begin to soften on the tree. If you look at the picture I've got here, the top, you see where it's been cut off, but you can see the persimmon is beginning to wrinkle. That means it's beginning to get less astringent. This particular native persimmons are either male or female. We just buy the female varieties because in our area, we have a lot of native persimmons. Here's a list of cultivars. Early Golden is excellent. Dollywood's another one that's done real well for us. It's more of a higher elevation. So here's some good varieties. The quality is really good on these. They're a little bigger than what we just find naturally out there. The next persimmon is the Asian persimmons. They'll even ripen later into the season for us. Some of the varieties you want to look at are the Fuyu, the Gasho are non-astringent and do real well for us in the region. We can pick them and just eat them without letting them change in that. It's a large tree, so pick those out. If you've got an astringent variety, it's the same as with the native. You wait till it starts beginning to soften or wrinkle just a little bit, then it's ready to go.
Asian pear, at what age do they start bearing fruit?
With the Asian, it's very variable to variety. Most of them are going to be at the 4-year range, between 4 and 6, according to how they're growing. Sometimes they'll bloom at the 2 and 3 year, but pinch them off. Let those structure of the limbs get a little bigger before you allow them to fruit. Especially the Fuyu will go really quick. It's about 3 years.
Somebody asked the difference between Fuyu Hana and Fuyu Jiro.
Both non-astringent, but they're just different in size and color on
Okay.
those two. They're just from the same species, but have been bred differently.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Going on to the next one, and then I'll take a break in a minute here, Allison. But I wanted to talk about figs because I mentioned those. Their cold tolerance is real important to look at. The ones I've got listed here are doing really good for us at that 3,000 or less range. Most of them will get damaged less than 10 degrees. But if you're looking at something for high elevations that work for us, are the Celeste is a little earlier. LSU Golden's a good one. Brown Turkey is that everbearer. If you've got a fig in the mountains and you don't know what it is, it's probably Brown Turkey because it will continue to ripen even if it's later in the season. My favorite, the last one listed, is Hardy Chicago. You don't need cross-pollination for figs. All of them are self-fertile. A lot of times if you're high and you got a wind blowing towards you, put it in a protected area. I like to keep these fig trees pruned to a bush form rather than to a high form. That way we can protect them a little bit better.
How does Little Miss Figgy do at 2,400?
Little Miss Figgy would do great. Don't put it higher than, say, 3,000, and it will not like that wind. If it's got a lot of wind coming from the southeast, protect it on the side of a house to where it's not getting that wind, or it'll freeze down just a little bit. It can't take but like -5.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
I'll talk about pawpaws real quick. It's the largest edible native fruit to the United States. In our region, they're going to usually ripen between August through the end of September. A few varieties that are a little later will go into October, but not too many of them. Their grafted cultivars are much better than seedlings because we know what the fruit size is. I just mentioned a few cultivars that do well for us. Most of the Peterson varieties do well, but all these varieties do good. Wabash seems to be the biggest for us in our region. Does a very good color in the fruit. Mango's another one. You need 2 cultivars or 2 different trees from different areas to have good cross-pollination. The spacum in the understory is 8 feet in the row, and whatever width you need, like 10 feet between rows. They're astringent as well, but not quite like a persimmon. You wait until the fruit begins to soften and then cut the fruit off of the tree is the best way to do that. Don't wait till it falls down or the possums will beat you to it.
Pawpaw. What type of root system does a pawpaw have? And will you be moving those when they mature? They look like they might have been in a close area.
Yep. I let them grow in close areas. In my orchards, I just place them wherever I feel like they need to be, but I keep them about 8 feet apart. And pawpaws grow differently. You need to understand it grows differently than like a cherry tree. A cherry tree has a fibrous root system. A pawpaw has a tap root, so it can go straight down. So the sooner you get it in the ground, if you bought one in a container, the better it's going to do. It'll push roots down first and grow very slowly on the top. And then after that second and third year, you all of a sudden get this big growth of expansion on the top. So it grows quite differently. You see where I'm at, there's a pawpaw right behind me there. That one's 5 years old, but the first 2 years, it just kind of sat there and put the taproot down. Did that answer that question, Allison?
It's really, really good. So could you, if we didn't repeat about how long it takes for a pawpaw to come into flowering?
Yes. Most pawpaws are going to be at that 5-year range. Very rarely, I've got Wabash fruiting at 3 and 4, but I cut all the blooms off there. They're just structures, not most all of the fruit trees in the home garden plan on a 4-year time period. Okay. Cherries, you'll get them in 4 years, sometimes earlier by variety. If you got a pawpaw that's grafted, it's going to be a lot earlier than a seedling. Cherries, dwarf, 3 years, non-dwarf up to that mid-size range. You add a couple of years on that. Did that help a little bit, I think?
Yeah, that helps a lot.
I'm gonna continue on with pomegranates. Pomegranates are one that we really need to look at. It's a Middle Eastern fruit. It's a deciduous shrub that really looks very nice. We have multiple bloom cycles on pomegranates, so it's a long range of harvesting. A lot of times I see them like in the Piedmont, they're going to be in August, they'll start coming in. But for us, it's usually September. Does a lot like a pawpaw. It'll bloom and it'll bloom and it'll bloom, and you'll have a series of them beginning to ripen. They're dried a lot and they're fresh. I've seen them more processed in the home garden to where we're getting that juice out of there more than anything else. Grenada is a really good variety that does well for us. Angel Red is the one that I'm showing here in the picture. It's a nice deep color. Soft seeded would be something like Utah. If you can look for the Russian series, you have to order those. The R series works a lot better and it's more cold hardy, especially of those of us that are above that 25 to 3,000 and we want a pomegranate growing. They don't need cross pollination. They're very much in the same realm. If you think of a fig, and I've talked about how less than 10 degrees tends to freeze them back a little bit, but they'll come back pretty good if you get some freeze on the ends of it. The biggest thing about pomegranates, especially if you were living on a dry ridge, these are really tolerant to dry sites. They'll put a good little taproot down and survive a lot of our dry droughts without water. The one I'm gone crazy about on my property are bush cherries. I never thought of them as a great, tasty. There's a lot of them that are out there, different colors. This is one of the ones that I have here. It's a real, most of them are tart. This one's Jewel that I'm showing here. The darker colors, Crimson Passion. They have a very fragrant flower. That's what I didn't understand when I first started growing these. I've got 5 varieties now of the bush cherries. A lot of them have a pink flower with a little red center. So it's a really pretty dwarf shrub that you can grow, probably 8 feet tall. Mine are at the 6-foot range. I'm keeping them there. Mass plantings make a nice screen. Look at these as an alternative to having fruit. At the 6-foot range, I got 2 quarts off of one bush. So you could actually almost make a run of jam off of your tart bush cherries. I'm so excited about them. I've just ordered 3 new varieties this year.
The bush cherries, are these the Nanking types?
No, there's a few that are Nanking, that red one I showed you, but the Nanking has a bigger seed than some of the bush cherry varieties that are out now. Gurney's is the company that has a bunch of varieties.
All right, great.
I'll put in here just a few little things about some shrubs that you need to be thinking about. There's these new varieties of blackberries. This one here is Primark Freedom. It's not a very good picture because they're a little bit bigger than that, but they're very large berries. You get 2 crops a year off of these new types. Prime Gem is one that's grown out there, but they're thornless. You can grow them on a trellis or sometimes even as a bush. They're pretty hardy for that. Another one that I don't recommend for commercial at all, but I'm so excited about it. When I lived in Oregon, you look at them, you think of them as a mulberry, but they're a really nice blackberry called Columbia. Great variety. It was developed in Oregon. It's heavy yielding. This one's a trailing, so it has to be held up a little bit, but It's a really great one. I had this one and ordered it last year, and it's just not doing real well yet for me because it was so small. So I'll probably plant it in the fall. But you see how long they are, and they're very, very tasty. This is my favorite blackberry for many, many years. I wanted to put this in here just because Craig wanted to. It's a very thorny blackberry, but it's white, and this is a picture of it. This is the first fruit I've had off of it last year. It's a zone 5 self-pollinated. I got my berries last year in July, but it's a unusual fruit, and I just thought I wanted to add that in. Another shrub that you really need to be looking at, especially if you're trying to do things in containers on a small scale. These are actually very small berries, but they're bush blueberries, and they're excellent ornamental. Most of them are at the 3-foot tall range. I'm getting about 5 to 10 pounds per bush. I actually counted on my Perpetua last year. It takes about 80 berries or more, so you see how small they are to make even a cup, but they produce good. Tell a little story about this right quick. My grandson, I made him take care of all the little blueberries I bought in last year after the season. He called me, he said, "Hey, Papa, can I have some other fruit to take care of besides those blueberries? I just hate eating blueberries." So I've now given him the strawberries. Look for the Brazzleberry is a brand or a patented type of these bush blueberries. They're either of the Brazzleberry or they're called Bush and Berry. The Perpetua is the one I'm in love with. I've got a picture of it I'm going to show you, but all of them seem to do real well for us. They make a great hedge. I think I've got a picture of that I'll show you. This is a great variety to look at sunshine as well. Another one I laughed about when I got one for a gift, it was a pink lemonade blueberry. I've got a picture showing you where I'm using these as a shrub border. They're similar to the southern blueberries. They're just, to me, a stunning ornamental. I just have fallen in love with them. They're very nutritious and they're very colorful. If you look at the photograph, they're really dark red. It's hard to tell when they're ripe. The redder they are, the sweeter they are. All these pink ones you're seeing here, but they're great for zone 6 even. You high elevation folks would do well with this one. A lot of us think of cranberries as something we can't grow, but we have a clone from Wisconsin that's working real well for us here. I'm having a little trouble getting it to spread because I keep stepping on it, but it's called Ben Lear. It works well in acidity, so work some peat moss into the hole when you plant it. It's very low growing. We think of them as more of a shrub, but I wanted to add this one because it's great for a home garden to have just a few oddball little fruits that are in there. This picture comes from Edible Landscapes up in Afton, Virginia. That's where I got mine. It just does really well for us, and we're having good production off of it. Bananas, one you take in and out. It's a really dwarf banana. People think of bananas as something very ornamental, but this Little Prince is one if you really want some bananas. It's a super dwarf variety. The picture here makes a very small banana. It's a 9 zone, but it's one we can take in, does well on a patio, makes these big leaves like an ornamental would do. So if you're thinking that you've got to have a little bit of bananas, you're from a region that have that, this is the variety you can work here. It never gets over 4 foot tall, so it's easy to move around and protect it for the winter. I just wanted to add that in. And the next one, and then I'll take a little question break. Elderberry is another one that is really great for the home garden. We're seeing the birds be a problem for us. The full sun to part shade works really good. The Niagara seems to be a good cultivar for us. That's the one I have. I actually have the American that's gets enormously tall. If you see the umbels here in the picture, that you can actually put little bags up on the umbels to keep the birds from getting those in the home garden. I think I had little bags over every one of mine last year, so I was able to save them all. Samdol and Samil are the 2 really short varieties, sometimes hard to find, but they're European and they're very small, 6 feet maybe. It works really good for the small backyard garden. Then I'll talk about jujubes and take a little break. Jujubes is one we really need to be thinking about. It's a really great fruit. I discovered this when I was living in Oregon studying small fruits there. They are about a plum-sized fruit, very drought tolerant, self-pollinating. If you're an area where the pH is a little high, I had an area in my garden that had a lot of ashes from a house that had burned down. It'll take a pH as high as 8. The problem I've seen with this is it suckers a lot if it likes the soil. So you got to keep the suckers pulled off. These are two different variety pictures here. You can see the difference. This one has a nice redder color, so it looks really nice in the landscape. Crunchy like an apple. And then hardy kiwi is another one. Got to be trellised. It's a grape-like fruit. It has a really tart flavor. Male and female, you got to have both. One male will pollinate 5 females. It's deciduous, and it makes a nice, attractive vine for a border. Let's stop right here and see if there's any questions before I continue.
Can you just briefly at some point during your talk review which of these plants are native to Western North Carolina? And also just be mindful of anything that would be suitable for shade or light shade as you go through this. I see that, for instance, on the mulberry, you have that.
The shade tolerant varieties, all of your blueberries in the shrub variety are shade tolerant. Pawpaws you can actually put underneath a canopy. I've got pictures in a few minutes to show you how they do in shade and how they do in the sun. But mulberry is one you need to look at. It's an easy care, one that we're not taking advantage of because it's really a nice fruit. It'll do a lot more shade than people realize. You can keep it smaller. It's a big tree, but easy to take care of just to prune it in there. Some of them are either dioecious or monoecious, so it has male and female. So make sure when you're ordering, and most of them that you're going to get are going to be self-pollinating. It's very fast growing, so it's very aggressive. You've got to prune it pretty much. It's native to our area, but we want to choose varieties that work for us in there. I'll try to remember each one to tell you about whether it's native or not. Quince is another one. This one is not native to us in the fruiting size, but you want to get a variety that does a nice big fruit on it. And there's a lot of them out there. Gurney's has got some, and that's one of the go-tos for the oddball shrubs that are out there. It'll make a tree if you let it. I didn't put varieties in there because there's so many different ones, but I would pick one that is more in the fruiting type. Like I do a lot of flowering quinces. I have a double flowering one. I use that for a banker plant for aphids, but this one is not. It's going to be more of a fruiting type. All of them are self-pollinating. They're on the market. We'll get our fruit in September and October, so make sure that you're getting a variety that is a little bit earlier in blooming. They have to have full sun. They will not fruit in shade. Well drained. I think I put that on there. Another one that people are looking at called Chokeberry. It's one of the aronias. It's native to North America, but we don't see them too much in our area here. It's like the shrub that's kind of been cut and gone away, but it is native to us. Beautiful flowers that are white in the spring. The color for me on the foliage is more important than the berry because the berry are not that great in flavor. They've got to be cooked to make them a little bit better. They're very short, 3 to 6 feet, but the fall color is really, really dark red and really nice for us in the landscape. A lot of times when the fruit comes on, if it's heavy, you can see the picture to the left, you'll have that darkish green color leaf and that really, really dark black color of fruit. So it actually looks nice even if you're not going to eat it. Another one that I've been experimenting with myself, I've had to move it now. This is the second time I've moved it, is the Goji Berry. And I just didn't realize the heavy amount of fruit that you're going to get off of a Goji Berry. I've now put it on a trellis. I had it right beside the steps going up to my back door, but it just is so aggressive. It loves the semi-shade. I thought it was a hot, full sun. That's what it says. But as long as you're getting that morning sun on it, it's going to just fruit all the way till it freezes. I got fruit last year off of mine, even around Christmas. It was just exciting that I got that. The flavor's not too great for me because it's so tangy. If you process it into some kind of a compote, it works really well. I did that last year, but it really needs support. The lower picture is actually the fruit off of mine, how heavy my fruit was last year. It looks nice too. I put it on one of those fan trellises and it was too small. So I've got a wider one and I'm going to cut it back to that now.
So on the goji berry varieties, is there one early enough to set fruit?
We really don't know the varieties that work good for us here. I forgot the name of that variety, but it's the earliest I could find on the market. I think I got it out of Gurney's. I believe that one right there. We've got one farm up in Black Mountain area I'm working with. We've got 4 varieties there. All of them are still producing like say July, August, when it starts getting cold? We're not getting enough early on that. That's a good question. So if anybody finds that, we need to share that with our other folks. But right now, we're just in the experimental stage for the mountains. Going into some of my pictures, and then I'll take a break. This is one of my pawpaw small orchards here. These are the pawpaw trees. They're a little bigger than this is 2 years ago. You see underneath here, I've got leaves as my mulch. Now I've got a walkway back here. But if you look at these smaller plants underneath, this is ginseng. Here's some over here. I've grown them in little patches. And then last fall, these were removed and placed all underneath these pawpaw trees. This is the way I'm doing levels. Above this is full shade with a little dapple light coming through on this picture. Here's another picture of the same angle. You can see these little patches of pawpaws here. These are the walkway that goes in through here. So I've got a high canopy above, pawpaws that are in the next canopy. You'll see in the background here, that's coach right there. And I've got smaller plants. These are not weeds. These are actually plants I'm growing underneath that canopy in there. This is a pawpaw that's grown in full sun. It's been pruned. This particular tree is in full fruit this year. It's 5 years old in the hot sun. And if you look at the next picture, this is a pawpaw in full shade that's 6 years old. And it's fruiting this year as well. But you can see how open the branches are of this pawpaw. This is just right off my front porch. This is where I can sit and watch it and see the fruit growing on it right there. My landscape is completely edible. I'm up to now 70% plants that are edible or usable. Here's a typical orchard that's in an edge. This is on the upper side of my place. This is my orchard. You can see I've got levels of things growing underneath as well. These are fruiting pawpaws that are 4 years old. You can see how large they've got in 4 years. I've got some in the back here that are smaller. I keep adding as I find them. There's some smaller ones in here. But these are particularly older. They're in semi-sun, or what I would call morning sun. And you can see how heavy the canopy is here. So it's in the edge. It's about 50 trees in the edge of a forest right there. This is that wonderful small low bush razzleberry blueberries that I'm nuts about. Look how shiny the leaves are. These blueberries right here, I'm getting 2 crops off this perpetua because of our long season and because we'll have the fall. A lot of our azaleas and blueberries get confused about our light. This is spring when they first go into fruiting, and then I'll pick them all off, and then all of a sudden I'll get another flush of blooms of that every year. It's a wonderful, wonderful little edge plant in there. This is a picture toward my cabin. This is that bush cherry I was talking about. I got 2 quarts off of this last year, and then in the background there's another bush cherry. These are those pink lemonade as an edging plant. And I have pink lemonade stuck in the landscape in different areas. But you can see how it's nice to add these smaller trees and shrubs. There's some trees back in here and figs in this area here. So you can see how you might just put that in your landscape. Another picture of shade, full on shade plants. This is a pawpaw right here, bush cherry. These are cinnamon ferns. I eat the little fronds when they first come up and make pickles out of them. Another picture, this is where I put that goji berry I was telling you about. This is a older picture, but the goji berries are now growing up on this trellis right here. This is a great opportunity. I didn't put this plant in there, but I'm crazy about rugosa roses because I can get the big hips off of these, and you can see the blooms that are on this one here. So you can just do that as an edge and then keep them in check. And I didn't mention, but these are those blackberries and raspberries we were talking about. These are raspberries here, and then half that starting here are blackberries. You can add that into your landscape very easily. This is an example for taking a North Star cherry, which is one of my favorites. You know, if you're looking at sour cherries, they're Montmorency, the North Star, and the Belaton are the 3 that do really well on a dwarf rootstock. This is 2 years. I let it fruit. You can see I've got it propped up right now because the cherries were quite heavy last year. But you can still get a lot of that fruit on it really quick with a dwarfing rootstock on there. Just a closing picture of a walkway coming into my house and all the different edible plants, bush cherry here on the left. Here's my contact information, and we'll stop right here and take questions.
Wow. That's great. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. Is black and red mulberry compatible to graft?
Yes, the rootstock doesn't matter, but what happens is with those, if you're putting a red on a black, which is what a lot of folks do, below the graft, there'll be a lot of growth try to come up. Keep that cut off for the first 3 or 4 years if you're trying that grafting, okay? Good
Okay.
question.
And then there were a couple of questions about black walnut tolerance. What would you say about that? Which ones would be tolerant of growing near black walnuts?
Of your fruit trees, very few of them are gonna be tolerant of the black walnut. Cherries, definitely not. You've got to make sure you're at least 80 feet from a big, tall walnut tree. Pawpaws are very tolerant. Blueberries are tolerant, but none of the rest of them I can think of, not even blackberries. Some of our blackberry varieties will just really stunt if they're near that. So just stay away from the black walnuts. Good question.
Okay. All right. And then, of course, we get our perennial question around deer. And I would also add bear, but, they're asking about deer resistance.
Okay. On fruit trees, most of them are not deer resistant. Pawpaws are going to be very resistant. They will not eat the leaves. They're very toxic. If you crunch them up, they even smell kind of like gasoline. The problem with them is they'll smell them when they get ripe. Then they'll come and they'll break down your limbs trying to get to those ripe fruits on the pawpaws. When you're looking at a lot of the other fruits, the biggest problem I've had with fruit trees in the home garden for me has been raccoons and bears. Bears will come in and lay by my blueberries and just reach up and pull the blueberries down and eat them. I've had a lot of issues with that. What's worked for me on a small scale is those deterrent sprays have worked. I now have these little screamers that I put it at the edge of my fruit trees where when they walk in, it makes a sound and flashing lights. For birds, all the little cans hanging up, all of the little CDs, drill holes in them. I've got those little spinners that go round and round just to make action. It just looks horrible for that time period, but that's that short time period that my fruit is there. I found that bagging fruit works wonderful for me. I didn't do it until last year. I bought these little bags where you can actually put them up over your grape clusters. It's very expensive, so it's not for commercial. It's for us home gardeners that want to do that. I could never found them. I saw them in China, bought them. Only place I found them was on Amazon. Just find a fruit bag. I put them on my pawpaws, put them on my grapes, put them on my elderberries, cherries. I've not done that. I've just tried to put netting over my small cherry trees. What else can I tell you about animals? I think that's all I've got on that, Allison, on the animals.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. Did ask a question about which ones are invasive. I think blackberries and brambles, if they're happy, they're going to spread.
Yeah, fruit trees, you're not gonna have a problem except for with pawpaws. They'll make a patch. They are stoloniferous. They'll move. Cherries, not a problem. I've had a few problems with bush cherries. I've got that one I showed you in the picture. They'll just come up down below, but I'm eating them all now, so I'm not having a problem with that. But if you let them fall to the ground, they are gonna start populating. But the rest of them I've talked about, not invasive. Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah, that helps a lot. We don't have a lot of time left, but if there are any pruning guidelines that you would share that will help people navigate their trees when they go out.
Most all fruit trees in the home garden are going to be what we call a central leader. That's the way I like them. I tried my peaches. That will not work. You don't get enough sun on your peaches. So that one's going to be an open center, and I'm not going to cover that. But I'll quickly, in 4 or 5 minutes, give you some slides that will show you a little bit of a way to do that. So, what shape do you want to train your fruit tree? There's no correct answer, but mine is central leader. I do all of mine central leader except for my peaches. I'm actually doing my plums as a central leader as well. But this is what they recommend, and that's in your notes in there. I'm going to go over the central leader really quick. When you first buy your tree, you want to train it. So, in those first 3 or 4 years until you have fruit, it's going to be trained. A lot of them are coming as whips. If you're buying from a good local nursery, you're probably going to have a larger 6 or 7 foot tree that's already begin shaping. So you have those two ways to buy. If it's a whip, it's going to be 30 to 40 inches somewhere in there. Cut it off. You can see right here, this little drawing I've got. You cut it off. And the reason for that, once you get it, you take all the blooms off as well. You want to break bud down lower and get a lot of limbs that you can shape as you go up. So in the second year, it made a few limbs down here. You cut it again, it's going to break bud. So in the second year, after that first 2 years of growth, you have whorls. So you look down on it, you're going to have a top view where the limbs are kind of equidistant. This is a whorl right here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then between here, you want to get no limbs and start another whorl at the top. In the life of that tree, you want it to look like a Christmas tree. So this is a whorl. This is 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So we come back every year and keep it in shape. We want a little bit of space in between those whorls so that you get like 3 scaffold whorls that are on there. Then we just stop that tree and don't let it get bigger. All of my pawpaw trees are going to be kept at that 8 to 10 foot range. I don't want to have to get a ladder to go up and get my pawpaw trees. So I'm going to cut them back and keep them in this shape right here. So I'm constantly cutting this end piece off and reducing the size of my fruit tree. So quick view, looking down on it. Once you've made a scaffold, you're going to get all these little laterals that come off of here. So these are where the fruit is going to be. And this is the view of the way you want it in there. So every year annually, you want one trunk. You want to try to get those angles a little bit wider. Remove any branches that cross each other. Space those lateral branches like we talked about here. If anything grows in between here, get rid of it. Any dead and diseased stuff, get rid of it. I don't care what time of year it is. The time you walk out there with your pruners, cut that dead off or anything unwanted. If it's growing tremendous, like I had my apple trees get that 4-foot growth in the summer, in the middle of the summer, I cut them back. Anything upright or out of the way, get rid of it. With home gardening, you can do summer pruning. Limbs that are improper, get rid of them in the summertime. If it gets too tall, cut it. In the commercial orchard, we're not going to do that. We don't have time to do that. But we can spread branches in the summertime if we need to. Just don't do anything real drastic and get rid of all those limbs except in the dormant season. And I think that's it, Allison. I just quickly went through that so people would have it. Hopefully that's helpful.
That's fabulous. I think that helps a lot. And I think we're done. I think you have done an excellent job of providing information. Fruit trees. I really, really appreciate you, Craig, for doing this for us. I want to remind everyone that we've got a variety of programs coming up and encourage you to visit the Master Gardener website. And we hope you guys have a great day in the garden. Thank you so much, Craig.
Yeah, thank you for having me.